So, hello, welcome to the annual most important ritual of the Perl team, the buff. Let's start by introducing ourselves for posterity. I'm Intri, I'm a part-time member of the Perl team, mostly during DebCamp, and mostly interested in removing packages.
Well, I'm Nodens. I'm a member of the Perl team since 2015, but not doing much stuff until recently, where I started breaking a lot of packages that were working perfectly fine.
I'm not breaking too many packages these days, but also not uploading many packages, but helping with some small things. And I'm David.
I'm Gregor. I'm a member of the Perl team since 2006, I think. And I'm working on lots of packages.
Okay, so looks like we have an agenda on Guppy, which includes some reporting and looking back at what happened last year. And then we have a few discussion items. So, looks like there have been a couple sprints. Gregor, can you tell us about Hamburg?
Yeah, so there was the mini DebConf and DebCamp in Hamburg in June. We had a Perl sprint there. We were 3 people, Nico, Dominic and me. Nico and Dominic were mostly working on Perl, the interpreter. They imported a 530 release candidate, I believe, at this time. And also looked at the packaging, converting it to short DH, where short is some 300 or 400 lines now, the Debian rules file. Yeah, I was working on DH make Perl and other toolings and packages. Nico and Dom also decided to use git debrebase for the Perl source package instead of git dpm. And yeah, there should be a report at some point. Currently there are copy notes.
About DebCamp, didn't prepare any report. You want to report something?
Yeah, well, so we did like last year and the year before, maybe? No, only last year's rolling sprint. That is, well, people showing up for a daily meeting. This time it happened at 2:30. And yeah, so lots of stuff, but I would need to open the report to actually detail on it. We uploaded a new version of DPT and also of dhmakeperl. Well, a lot of packages updated, 51 if I remember correctly. And a few packages removed, maybe only one, but a lot of removal bugs made, mostly about GTK. What else? There was David. You had a surname change on a library.
Right. I did the non-Perl part of the Perl sprint. So
Okay.
there was some library transition, which was, to be honest, a bit overcautious. I mean, it was some very subtle change which probably no user of the library would ever encounter. But what the heck? So we did an SO name change, and it's in experimental now. And someone should remind me to look at that transition. So it will trigger an automatic transition on the tracker. And at some point, that needs to be pushed forward and actually happen. So,
Okay. You want to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Lucas Kanashiro. So
What's your report?
I've not been very active inside the Perl team. I've been working with other stuff, but I'm here to try to understand the current status, and I'm also maintaining some package inside the team. So that's why I'm here.
So what else on the sprint report? Oh yeah, there was this embedded modules in packages at build time that I was working on. So there are a lot of modules that use ink at build time, but for different things, but mostly just to build. And those modules are sometimes in Debian or could be in Debian. It's a bad idea, of course, because, well, we might run into issues, and, well, using code we embed instead of using code we maintain is always bad. So the idea was first to get a mapping of the problem and to see if it was, fixable somehow. So the mapping turns out not so bad after all. So we have a bit under 400 modules using module build or module install at build time, 74 using some kind of custom build system or extending existing one, which is perfectly fine. A bunch of others using alien module or test base with a strange module called Spiffy that I don't really get what it does, but it's a pain to actually package. I did not manage to do it. And a few using ink latest, which will actually check if the embedded version is more recent than the one available in the system, which is also fine. If you make sure you have version dependencies, well, build dependencies. So, yeah, so it seems fixable. So I prepared some fixes for the 21 using, for the 74 using custom build system or, well, not using custom build system. There are around 20 or 30 packages to fix, something like that. There are detailed report on these issues. It's also in a Gobi document. And so I made a proposal of policy change, but I think that's an item for later in the BOF.
Anything else about past sprints? Or shall we move on? So I see we have looking forward, plans for next year in the agenda. What is it about?
Well, the question we have each year is, do we want to have a sprint again next year? I can say yes, I like sprint. I would like to have more people than we were in Hamburg, because then it's a bit more productive. Yeah. I mean, besides that, in general, there are the options to have a sprint only for ourselves or to use the opportunity at some other event. I don't know.
I would love to attend the sprint again. I guess we should look at what time of the year is more likely to attract people and these sort of things.
So the timing the last years, of having it in May or early June, has the advantage that there are the Perl releases, so it's good for Nico and Tom to play with the upcoming release. But yeah. Maybe we can set a date or a period now where we actually decide this. So like we put down in the notes now that someone sends out a mail in, I don't know, November, and we have a discussion then. Because probably now here we won't come to a final conclusion.
Do we know yet about mini DebConf plans for, say, the summer, or it's all vague? That would be sensible to align with, maybe? I don't know. Maybe not. Okay.
That was the case for the Hamburg sprint this year, I think. Was it? Yeah, it was next to the mini DebConf, which does make sense.
So who wants to send this mail in November?
Okay, let's say I can commit to this one. And so, yeah, October, November, start to coordinate, schedule a sprint. All right? Then while I take notes, maybe Gregor can, or somebody else who attended some low-hanging fruit session can report back about this.
Yeah, so we started these low-hanging fruit sessions in, I don't know, 2014 or something. The idea is to meet once a month on IRC and to tackle simple but maybe boring problems together in parallel, so it's a bit more fun. I've looked up the numbers for this year. It's in copy. I think I'm not going to read out all the numbers. It's basically the same as in the last year's. Participation is going down a bit. But yeah, we had altogether 11 sessions with well, a couple of participants, on average 2.9. And some work got done during these sessions. I mean, in practice there was one with only one person and some with two persons, so not all of them were very well attended, but they happened. Don't know if anyone wants to add something from the past. If not, then we can ask ourselves if we want to continue this tradition, and if we want to stick with the dates, which have been the 21st of each month, and alternating between 17 o'clock and 19 o'clock UTC.
Well, I do like the concept, but I'm been a very bad attendant of the LHF this year, because every time it was a day where I could not attend. So, but I think normally, statistically, 21st of each month, it's a different day of the week, so it should work. And alternating the time is also good for, especially since we do have usually a bit shift of time zone between participants, even if we are mostly in Western Europe. Usually, it's not always the case. So yeah. Well, I have anything. I have nothing better to propose than this schedule. So.
Do people who attended the sessions last year still see value in keeping up with that and still want to have them?
Well, at least I do.
That's enough, I guess. I mean, Gregor plus whoever shows up is a thing.
Yeah, and I guess if the scheduling detail, the hours or whatnot, is a problem and blocks anyone from participating, this can be discussed later on the mailing list.
Okay, so we continue with the scheme we're having until further notice or until complaints. Right.
But yeah, people on the list should shout if it does not work for them.
Okay, while Intro is typing, maybe I continue with the next topic. So that's the team status or whatever, health overflow. We have this committer stat script which I ran again yesterday, which shows that 57 person made at least one commit in the last year, which is in the same range as in the last years. And 11 people were very active and had more than 100 commits. Last year it were 19, but the years before it was also between 11 and 14. So looks like that the participation is similar. There's no immediate emergency. What we have also discussed under this topic in previous years was the inactive member ping. So there have been years when we have checked which team members hadn't committed anything for 2 years and sent out a mail asking them if they want to continue staying in the team. The last time this has happened was in 2017, because the tooling was for Alioth, which we still had back then. Yeah, so the question is, do we want to resurrect this tradition procedure? And if yes, we would have to think about how to do it now with Salsa.
It sounds like a good project for next DebCamp to port the tooling, or next sprint. So it might be fine if we skip a year, and so our plan is, let's fix the tooling and then we get back to doing the inactive scans. I more or less would be interested in working on such a tooling project.
Shall I continue? So Perl 530, as I mentioned before from the Hamburg sprint, is in experimental and is in perl.debian.net. The machine Nick and Dominic are running to rebuild reverse dependencies and find bugs. I've pasted the URLs to the tagged bugs. Oops. In copy and to the work in progress page. I'm not really sure what needs to be done before the transition. I think there are only 2 or 3 bugs currently, so either some haven't been filed yet or we really don't have more. And yeah, I guess Nico and Tom will, after the return from whatever they are doing in European summer, file a transition bug, and it looks all quite painless this time.
Hello, I just wanted to say hi to the Perl team. Ina here. Don't mind me.
Who's this? Wait a second. We can see you. But we will. Oh, Tina. Hi.
Hola.
Okay, looks like you have a new participant. Can you please introduce yourself, if you wish so?
I thought I was talking earlier and probably was muted. No, I was saying I just dialed in to say hi to the lovely Perl team because I saw you guys were meeting. But yeah, I will not participate. Just wanted to say hi.
Oh, hi back.
Hi. Okay, shall we move on to the next topic? Okay, so the next one, I won't read everything that's in Guppy. So just to mention it, that a few of us started playing with using dicket for uploads during this step camp as an experiment, mainly to see how it works. It's not really a discussion topic for today because we feel it's a bit too early to decide about whether we want to use this consistently across the team or not. Some feedback. I guess to sum up, I would say that dicket brings some improvements and makes a few things easier, but getting used to it and dealing with the corner cases requires learning a bit, and we've seen some, it's a new thing. We need to learn about it. I guess we'll keep testing and see what happens, maybe next year. And I guess, it would be nice if more team members would also play a bit with it. And if you need help to get started, I guess you can ask Gregor or I. At least I.
Or me, I use dicket for other things, as well as the small amount of Perl team stuff that I do. So, also Sean Witten is and Ian are both very willing to answer sort of user questions, they're not telling you to read the fine manual. Or at least they tell you which fine manual to read. So
Which is already something.
they're friendly about telling you which fine manual to read. So it's good.
So just for clarification, I've been only trying dicket push source, so I'm still building and testing whatever packages as before. It's just a tagging and upload, and it seems mostly harmless. So yeah.
I think that's a perfectly sensible workflow to only use dicket push source. That's what I do also.
I also use it to build. But one thing to note is that it's a bit awkward to use, or maybe not awkward, but it adds some overhead to using dicket if the entire team is not using dicket. So we'll see how long we do this experiment as an isolated practice. And then we can move on to our various discussion items. I'd like Gregor to introduce the first one.
Yeah, that comes from me with the title "Remove Unmaintained Native or Quasi-Native Stuff." So I noticed that we have some packages which are either native packages or modules on CPAN but written by Debian people. The ones I noticed are package components, license reconcile, both written by Nikolaus Bamba, very apt, and libpass Debian changelog from Frank Lichtenheld. So, and we are the maintainers, and they are all de facto upstream because no one is maintaining the code, and they all have some problems like bugs. And yeah, no one really cares about them. I'm at least in 2 of them, maybe in all 3 of them in uploaders, because I uploaded them to fix some packaging bugs, but I'm not committing to maintaining the actual code. So this is a bit of a problematic situation. All of them have reverse dependencies and or users, so we can't just get rid of them easily. But we should do something about them. And we came up with a couple of options, like try to get rid of them by filing bugs against the reverse dependencies and getting them to be ported or whatever. Or of course someone says, okay, I'm going to maintain this, not as in packaging, but as in maintaining the actual code, then it would be fine. Well, or we could also just orphan them and see if anyone else in Debian wants to take them and do something with them. Yeah, or maybe something else.
Orphaning sounds reasonable, and filing bugs on the reverse dependencies at the same time? That's not... I don't know. It seems like it sends a signal that... although we have so many orphan packages that just go on being maintained by QA forever, so... maybe. I don't know. Maybe orphaning is not a strong enough signal. Do you think any of the reverse dependency would want to maintain them? I guess we can ask.
Well, half of the reverse dependencies are our own stuff. At least for some of them.
I'd be more into filing RC bugs against reverse dependencies and taking care of these packages going away from the archive unless somebody steps up ourselves more actively than orphaning and hoping somebody will take care of us. But I can live with either option.
Yeah, so I guess filing RC bugs on these will sort of trigger auto removals of the dependent packages, right?
At some
Which would be a
point.
way to get the attention of the maintainers, I guess.
Yeah, which would remove dh-make-perl and pkg-perl tools, for example. So we should be a bit careful with this.
Well, this would get our attention.
Right.
So maybe there's not one solution for all of these cases. Are there any of these which you mentioned which seem like the popcorn is quite low for the reverse dependencies? Or, I mean, are there any that I see. So maybe this is a question, right? To say what is the damage if we remove these packages?
So Salvatore is saying on IRC, maybe file an IRC pack not fit for bullseye without active upstream maintenance and see what happens.
Yeah, that was essentially
Yeah.
Well, we can always close the RC bug, right? It's not an irrevocable step.
Exactly. And given the timing and the bullseye dev cycle, I guess now would be a good time to file these RC bugs instead of in a year, where it will be a bit harder to tell people, yeah, you have 6 months to port your stuff.
Right. Okay. Let's file RC bugs. Let's file RC bugs, yay.
Okay, I can introduce the next one. So there's a deb build option and deb build profiles thingy that's called NoCheck. You can annotate a build dependency in Debian control with this flag, NoCheck. And then if you pass some options to the build system, you will either, you can skip tests and skip installing the build dependencies that are tagged NoCheck. So far, we've not tagged build dependencies as such. Not much, not consistently. Tagging build deps as such, for example, libtest blah perl, which is not needed to build the package if you skip the upstream test suite. Adding these flags provides a shorter feedback loop when building locally if you don't need the test results. It also seems to be good practice for the broader Debian community, like it helps bootstrapping Debian for new architecture, it helps cross-building and these sort of things. We don't do it much yet because it requires more work, more repetitive work. There's some work in progress by Gregor in dh-make-perl to add this stuff. It's not perfect and it can't ever be perfect. So it seems that if we start doing this, even with the best automation we can come up with, it will always have some kind of overhead cost. At least a little bit. On the other hand, it seems that worst case, if we add this tag where we should not, or don't add it where we should, the actual impact is pretty low, no big harm done, and that's okay if the automation gets it wrong. So the question is, shall we make this a matter of team consistent practices to try to add these NoCheck tags everywhere relevant? Do you think it's a good time to do this? Do we think it's worth the effort?
Just as a question to clarify, so we're talking about test both from auto-pkg test and the test run by the upstream package? Or which tests are we talking about?
The upstream tests run during build.
Okay, so
they make test during the build. Well, maybe we could take it. Oh, well, one step back. I think it works. It doesn't do any harm. It might help in some situations. So we should, at some point, get into just doing it. I think maintaining it right now would be maybe a bit early because tooling and because people are not really used to it. So maybe we can take a two-step approach to say let's recommend it for now and hope that many people do it, try it. Let's hope that someone fixes or completes the work in th-make-perl, and then when we get enough adoption in a year and we're all happy with it, then let's say, okay, now we're kind of mandating it for our packages. Does that make sense?
yes. So being good citizen in the Debian ecosystem anyway is always our thing. So
An issue with that?
If I was very active in the team, I would be strongly in favor.
Looks like we have consensus. Gregor, do you want to introduce this Salsa pipeline, Salsa CI thing?
Okay, as probably most people know by now, as there has been lots of promotion about it, there's this Salsa CI team which has prepared a prefabricated pipeline to run on Salsa. So that's a set of jobs which are executed when something is pushed to a Salsa repository. Currently that's building packages and and running some tests as repro test for reproducibility, auto package test, build log hardening checklinks, and pew parts. The selling points of this initiative is that you don't have to run all these tests locally. You just push and they are run and you get the results. And they are essentially maintained and can be essentially updated. In order to use them, and that's more in the disadvantages, a section currently at least, there might be changes, there needs to be a file in each repository and a setting for each repository on Salsa needs to be changed as well, which can be done via the API of course, but still. So Nico and Tom have enabled it for the Perl package and have hit some interesting bugs with fake time and repro test, fake time and Perl tests, but that's a different story. I've put it in this post-basta branch for th-make-perl just to have one thing to experiment with. There it takes 9.5 minutes to run. Yeah, which, okay, I'm now coming to the personal side, which doesn't make me so enthusiastic. In these 9.5 minutes I've run the same tests locally twice or something like this, so yeah, I don't know. So the question here is now, do we want this for all packages, or do we recommend it, or do we forget about it, or do we wait for better time when it's easier to implement?
So in this 9.5 minutes, how are you blocked? I mean, you can, I guess, you can, the upload is not finished, it waits for, oh, it's just a push, so it's not an upload. I see. So you could not push again, I guess, for the same project until that's finished, or, well, you could, but then the CI jobs would start piling up on top of each other or something. Okay. So, right. Do you push a lot?
I think that this is really important, especially for newcomers, because most of them, they don't have this local environment set up, so you can have some consistency among all the contributors. And I think maybe it will be easier to reproduce when someone comes up with some problem on IRC or in a mailing list, and you have the results of the Salsa CI. And I think it will be easier to debug, and because you have a shared environment to run this thing.
Well, I think, well, personally, I also run those tests locally, but I always have issue with my local repro test setup, so I'm glad if it's done elsewhere, but it usually is when the package is uploaded. So it's nice to have it before the upload. And also, I think it can give us a report of all the packages and the state of all the packages, which is something interesting. Like, I guess with the Salsa CI, there's a way to see, okay, well, from all the packages in this group, maybe we can check the state. Well, if there's something like that, or if we can set up a dashboard or something that can show the state for all our packages, then it becomes interesting, because it's not only, okay, the ones that I maintain, but maybe I can see problems in, this category of problem in a bunch of packages. I just fixed it in mine. Maybe I can fix it in the others.
So even 4 minutes seems quite long for a test suite. Do you know if that's typical for Perl packages?
I think that's typical for CI, because it has to download a bunch of stuff.
Right, I understand Salsa CI is doing a bunch of, I see. So it's the repro test. It's not just unit test, it's all these heavy duty tests. I understand.
Q parts.
Parts, auto package tests.
Right. Okay. So then maybe most packages would be 5 minutes or so to do all these tests.
I fear we lack information to decide right now to enable this for all our packages. But I would like to know what would be the drawbacks if we start doing it for some of us start doing it for some packages they particularly care about and want to play with it, use it, and see what happens. I think we mentioned email noise and IRC noise. Is this compulsory? Can we turn this off, or do we have to have this noise? If
well, for IRC we have kind of enabled it on purpose for all packages, so we can also disable it. I mean, I already disabled the most noisy part about all the jobs, so now there are only messages about the pipelines, which I think are still 3 or 4 messages per pipeline run. I think if we now have a couple of packages, it's okay. If we start to do this for all of them, then we might have to rethink it. But yeah, it's tunable in the configuration via the API.
okay, what about this proposal? Starting quote. It's okay if you want to enable this for a given package or small set of packages, as long as you keep an eye on the results and deal with it. And then if it creates too much noise, or if other team members, if it harms the work of other team members, please say so, and if we need to adjust whatever is reported on email and or CI on IRC, we can do that, and we can reconsider in a year.
Yeah, and maybe in a year this setup also gets easier.
It's probably useful to give the Salsa CI team reasons that might be blocking adoption, because they seem eager to help people adopt. So if we say, well, being too slow is a reason, that actually sounds like an possibly easy problem to fix. It might just need more money, which is easy.
So the Salsa CI people are very open to all the proposals, but they depend on the Salsa people.
So just a follow-up. So I mean, there might be a possibility of providing runners in a different way, for example, that we could investigate. I mean, if we pkg-perl have enough packages, then it makes sense to have runners which are fast.
So we have something like 2 minutes left and 3 more.
6.
Okay, the clock goes until 11:49. That's good. Yeah, I mean the last two are not that important. We can move them to mail, but this policy change proposal about the models in ink is important.
Yeah, so, well, I can show the current wording. The wording might need to be changed, but during the sprint we discussed this quite a bit. Well, I was working on it most days, so every day I had something to say about it. But the consensus during the sprint that was, yeah, well, it is something we should fix, and if it's easy to fix, why not? And I had some corner cases where it was not so easy to fix, but mainly it was because there were other bugs in the packages that were under the radar because there was no new option release. And usually we fix packages when there's a new option release. So like lintian issues or stuff like that. That was what took me most of the time. Most of the time it's just a matter of in the g-rules file adding 2 overrides, one to remove ink before building and the one to restore it afterwards. So that's pretty simple and it works well. Just add your build depends and version build depends if needed and it works. So well, of course, since I proposed this change, I think we should implement it, but the policy itself might need rewording. I'll show it.
Yeah, I think that's great, and thanks a lot for all this work. I think there's at least one sentence which I would like to reword a bit because module build is a bit different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe go over the text again, but maybe we can now say that in general we would like it, sit together to look at the wording again, send a second proposal to the mailing list, and if then there's not much criticism, or no criticism, I hope, then we can just push it or merge it.
Yeah. I mean, I have not seen the actual wording yet, but I support the idea.
Well, okay.
So next discussion topic is lunch. No. Okay, looks like we don't have time to go through another discussion topic in 3 minutes. So shall we wrap it up? Any final comments or words from anybody? Maybe from IRC?
IRC is very quiet.
Yeah.
It's me and me. Okay, let's let the video team have lunch.
Yeah.
Always a good idea. They get very cranky if we don't feed them.
All right. Thank you for attending, and thanks to the video team for the work.
Thanks, Tina, for saying hi.
And thanks to the members of the team who did real work this year.